What kind of trends or cool tech is coming to DFW Airport?
It's a really exciting time to be at airports right now. So that technology is going to unlock a lot of opportunities to make it a completely seamless experience at airports. So in the not too distant future, this idea of having to take off your shoes, take your laptop out, the screening technology, not only the imaging, but then layering artificial intelligence, machine learning on that is really going to make that a much more enhanced experience for passengers.
So exciting.
Yes. My name is Mike Youngs, and you're listening to Tech Legacies Podcast.
Our guest today is the VP of IT at DFW Airport in Dallas-Fort Worth. He's also the former Deputy CIO of the Phoenix Airport. So if you are an aviation enthusiast like I am, or you travel a lot, you're going to want to make sure you watch this entire episode, because we're going to get into some of the cool tech at DFW Airport as well, and probably coming to an airport near you as well. So welcome, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely.
I'm excited.
So I'm going to dive straight into it. What was the best career advice you've gotten?
I think, being in IT, obviously people have technical backgrounds. The technology is fun. But unless you're working at like Google, Amazon, I mean, you're really an internal service provider. You're there to support the business. And so the best advice, I've gotten some good advice over the years, but really the best advice is don't lose sight of who your customer is. Really understand how they operate and how you can apply technology to provide real value to them. So that's been kind of my mantra through my career, and something I try to never lose sight of.
Where did you pick up that advice?
I was fortunate. I had a great mentor at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, a guy by the name of Bill Bayham, who was the former CIO there. And he was just, very well-read guy, a wise guy, but just got a lot of wisdom from him. And he was, to me at the time, one of the only IT leaders that I was hearing say, we really need to focus on customer experience, delivering for our customers. So I still hear his voice in my head quite a bit.
Nice.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like you've had decades in airports, basically.
Decades. That sounds like a long time. Yeah, a couple.
It just means you have lots of wisdom to share.
Yeah.
What kind of got you into that? How did you get into it? And
I kind of got lucky. My background is in geospatial data and geographic information systems. So for those who remember, we used to use paper maps.
I remember road trips with those.
My first job out of college was working at Rand McNally in Chicago, and I was part of a team that digitized the road atlas for the first time. I quickly learned that that wasn't what I wanted to do for the rest of my career. So I started learning additional technology skills. That led me to be an analyst programmer at the city of Phoenix. Eventually an opportunity opened up at the airport there as the GIS manager. And I remember thinking at the time, man, I don't know if they're going to have enough going on to keep me entertained, and interested. And that was the most ignorant thing I could have ever thought. And so I got to the airport. Basically, we mapped the entire facility, and that led to additional opportunities and responsibilities. But the thing about airports that I didn't know at the time, but I now fully understand, is they're really like a small city. And so there's just a wide array of technology that we get involved with. So that's, what gets me motivated every day to get out of bed and go to work. And I can't really imagine working in another industry at this point.
I love airports. I mean, do you still feel a thrill traveling and walking through airports?
Absolutely, and I'll tell you, it's a little bit of a different experience now because I'm walking around looking at their systems and technologies. But for me, airports, personally, I have a lot of nostalgia because I remember going to visit grandparents, going on trips, and the thrill of travel and going to a new place. And since I've been at DFW, I've been able to travel internationally quite a bit to learn what other airports are doing, and just the idea that I might wake up in Hong Kong tomorrow and get a new experience, try new cuisine. That's what I associate the airport with. And for DFW, that's the first place folks experience a lot of times when they come to the area. So we take pride in that, really wanting to create a welcoming environment, a great customer experience. So I still love the airport. I'm a bit of a geek about it, I guess, but to me, it's a special place, and love being around it.
Other than DFW, which I'm sure is awesome, and it is awesome, what would you say is one of your favorite airports?
That's a tough one, and man, I don't want to offend any of my colleagues by any means, but if I'll tell you the one I like is Traverse City, Cherry Capital Airport. For those from Michigan, it's up here. But that's my wife's from Michigan originally. I went to college in Michigan. That's where we met, and we go back there every summer. So that's
What makes it unique, or it was?
It's small. It's easy to navigate, but it's just you're seeing family. You're on vacation, so that's. Yeah. But from a technology perspective, there's some great airports out there. I've had the good fortune to go to Changi in Singapore, and it's an experience, as well as Incheon and some other airports around the globe. But and also Copenhagen, I would put up there as well. So
I love Changi. It's a destination.
Yes.
When I was living in Singapore, they would go to the airport just to eat and shop without even having to travel.
Yeah, it's great. Really a great experience. They do a nice job there.
So was there something from your childhood that sparked this passion for technology?
I think, I just maybe kind of fell into it. But I was, I guess I would say I didn't have an idyllic childhood. Unfortunately, my mother died of cancer when I was pretty young. And at the time, my father was going through some challenges. Fortunately, my aunt and uncle, who lived outside of the Detroit area, decided that, they really need to take me in and make sure that I would have a stable home environment, and that they were both teachers. So that experience, taught me a couple things. First, with my mother dying, that life, you never know what life is going to throw at you.
Yes.
And also nobody's just going to give you anything. But I was fortunate that both my aunt and uncle were school teachers, and so education was a priority, and they really drilled that into me, made sure I did well academically and got into a university. And so, but I also learned from them that they weren't in it for the money. They were about making a difference and doing something they were passionate about. So from that, as a young student at Michigan State University, I took a class in basically automated map production. And just, I was like, this is, because I'd always liked maps and just never really thought that it could become a career for me. And so having that exposure, and was fortunate that really ignited an interest in me, that helped me get to where I'm at today. So I've kind of always just followed the principle of, don't be afraid to go after something, but first and foremost, it really needs to be something you're interested in and have a passion for. So that's served me pretty well over the years.
I mean, to get from, in the simplest term, a map guy
Yeah.
to VP of IT of one of the biggest airports in the world, right? What do you think contributed to that progression?
Yeah.
Like, is there an ingredient or a success factor?
I think so. A few is, not being afraid to go after something, just kind of throwing your hat into an interview process and having the mindset of, hey, maybe I'm not going to get selected, but I'll pick up some additional skills for the next time. But also really highlights, the need for continuous learning and not being satisfied with the skills that you have today. I mean, I didn't know any computer programming when I was in college. I had maybe minimal exposure to it, but I took advantage of professional development opportunities, and basically became an analyst programmer with a geospatial focus, but that was all after college, continuing to learn, take advantage of professional development opportunities, but also, try to find good mentors and leaders that would help me along the way. And I've been very fortunate in that regard.
Having that hunger
Yeah.
to learn,
Right.
right? And the drive to learn. Did you hit any kind of low points in your careers, and what were some of the lessons you learned from that?
Yeah. I when I got to Sky Harbor, I advanced a couple positions pretty quickly, and I was on a nice trajectory. And then the CIO there left somewhat unexpectedly. And so I was put in an interim role, and it was a rotation between three of us. And it was just, whoa, this is a lot. I mean, all of a sudden you're dealing with budgets and presenting to board and city council, dealing with executives. So it was a whole new set of skills that I had never, hadn't had a lot of exposure to at that point. And so when my rotation was done, I was like, I don't know if I really want to do this. I don't know if I'm qualified. I don't know if I'm good enough. But at the end of the day, I still had this thought in my head that, you know what, I think I can make a difference. Like, maybe I'm not ready now, but I'm going to find out, like, what skills, what do I need to do better so when the opportunity comes the next time, I'm better prepared to take that next step. And I did that. So I took, more of the softer skills, public speaking, business writing. I mean, I had the strong technical background. I had to round that out a little bit. And then I was fortunate that Bill Bayham was ultimately hired as a CIO, and I had a few years under his leadership. And he really, kind of set me up to follow in his footsteps. It was a low point where I was really questioning where do I go from here, and have I kind of reached my peak? And it was one, just having a little bit of spark. I think I can do it.
It's almost like a belief.
Yeah.
Or...
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Or just, just sometimes it's just picking yourself up, dusting yourself off, and saying, you know what, I just gotta keep moving forward. So,
well, in a world where sometimes we're expected or to know all the answers, to have all the answers,
yeah.
How do you get around maybe that self-doubt that pops up, or insecurity pops up that we don't know the answer, especially as a CIO, right? Where there's so many technology advances and
it cracks me up. I mean, I'm the head of IT at home, and at one of the largest airports in the world, and people expect me to know how to build a network, fix their iPhone, be a cybersecurity expert. But it really just speaks to building a high-performing team. But with respect to having doubts, I mean, I'm somewhat fortunate in the fact that my wife's a therapist. And I jokingly tell her sometimes maybe they should have hired you. But I mean, so, part of it is just kind of having an understanding of that everybody feels like this at times, and it's okay, and you acknowledge that. And then you talk to people, the people that you trust and who care about you and have your back. And I'll just share, because my wife is a therapist, our family's kind of encouraged to, get therapy and,
Right.
and seek out help, because
Why not?
we
Yes.
all go through difficult times. So I'm lucky to have a good partner that complements me in that way.
Yeah, IT and therapy.
Yeah.
The hard skills and the soft skills,
Yeah,
right? That's
exactly.
amazing. And especially in IT, right, where we're measured for our accuracy, for low risk,
Yeah.
right? It becomes quite stressful to always be aiming for that 0% chance of error kind
Right.
of. And especially at an airport, right?
Yeah, it can be a thankless job at times. And networks up, systems are up 99% of the time, but the reality is we're so dependent on technology today, and even a small incident can have a significant operational customer impact, and we try to minimize that. But we're never 100%, and I've learned that in what you need to communicate, be able to communicate to leadership is, there's always some risk. We do what we can to mitigate it. And try to demonstrate that you've learned from an issue and what you'll apply going forward to prevent things from, a reoccurrence. So that's kind of how I try to approach it.
You mentioned team, Mike, right? How big's your team at DFW Airport?
We about 175 airport employees, and then we've got 50 contractors at any given time working there. So pretty big team.
I want to pause real quick here and give a special shout out to one of our sponsors, CG Infinity. I've worked with them for several years now, and I can truly say that they have one of the best workplace cultures that I've ever experienced. And they specialize in a variety of industries, especially energy, utilities, and financial services. And they serve them through their Salesforce, cloud, as well as customer experience services. So thank you, CG Infinity, and I hope you'll support them as they have supported us here at the podcast. Any lessons or advice that you've learned from building such big teams?
Yeah, and pretty much going from Phoenix to DFW, the size of the team doubled. So there's a few things. One is you can't know everything that's going on, so you've really got to surround yourself with good leaders and hold them accountable. But also, I think one of the lessons learned for me personally, when I first got to DFW, I wanted to be seen as kind of being decisive, action-oriented, and I learned through some challenges that sometimes you gotta make sure you have all the information, talk to everybody involved before you take action, so you know that you've accounted for every possible fact or scenario. So those are a couple of things. And then with a team that size, communication is critical. So I'm really focused on regular communication with the team, so they know about me. I send out an employee email weekly with kudos, but also what are the priorities, what are our goals, here's things you need to know about, so they're consistently hearing from me. And then the other thing I try to do, we have an area, a gathering area for people can go there and make their lunch and relax. It's called the Hangar. And I try to make a point of being there weekly, because I'm the guy in the big office, and it can be intimidating, maybe trying to come and talk to me. So I put myself in a setting that's, very comfortable and neutral, and encourage people, come by, tell me what's going on, got any ideas or challenges, would love to hear about it. So those are a couple examples, but I think really consistent communication is a big thing with a team that size. And to a certain extent, you're just, I kind of like to think of myself as sort of a good metaphor for me is a football coach. I mean, you've got to have good coordinators. The players ultimately have to play the game. And for me, sometimes I've got to work a little more with the offense. Sometimes I got to work a little bit more with the defense, depending on where the needs are and where challenges are. So it's just understanding that you need to be a little flexible and adjust your attention as appropriate. So.
I like that tip, because a lot of times you ask leaders and they say they have an open door policy, right? Which it can be intimidating, mustering up the courage to walk into the CIO's office kind of thing, whereas you're putting yourself where the employees are hanging out, and then it becomes a bit more less intimidating and like more natural and comfortable.
That's absolutely the goal. Yep.
So let's get into, actually before that, now you mentioned your team. I actually come across a lot of project managers, right, that are either in transition or looking for new roles, and it becomes a blur almost sometimes. I want a project management role. Yeah. And then how do you select your project managers and have them, what stands out to you about them?
Yeah, great question, and one that I'm kind of passionate about, and really kind of ties back to the first question of how do I think about my role in IT within an organization. But I interview project managers, and I will always ask the question, how do you know that a technology project was successful? And many times I will get a very textbook project management institute response of it was within scope, within budget, within the timeline. And I will, if I get that answer, I'll say, those are important, but the correct answer is, did we have a satisfied customer? Did we provide business value? Could be we achieved a cost savings, could be we delivered operational efficiency, could be we enhanced the customer experience at the airport. And so you could go over budget. We're not encouraging that. It could take longer, but if we've delivered on behalf of our customer, they're satisfied and we're providing value, that's when you know a project is successful.
Again, going back to what you're passionate about, customer experience and customer service.
Absolutely.
Right. Love that. So airports. Let's geek out a bit over airports.
Thank you.
What kind of trends or cool tech is coming to DFW Airport, let's say?
Yeah, to me, that's why it's a really exciting time to be at airports right now. I mean, traditionally, we've been seen as kind of a little bit behind the time in terms of technology, but the pandemic has really accelerated expectations from customers. And so
Did the pandemic help them update everything during that time?
Yeah, there was. We actually got a lot of work done taking advantage of the fact that there weren't as many passengers in the terminals. And so not only did we make improvements from a digital perspective, but the physical infrastructure. We actually accelerated some projects because we knew we could get it done faster due to lower operational activity. But from a technology perspective, facial recognition biometric is really going to transform airports. You're already starting to see that. We installed a system to automate boarding of international flights for departure. So you don't have to present a boarding pass or your passport. It takes your picture and automatically matches it not only to your flight record, but also your boarding pass. So that technology is going to unlock a lot of opportunities to make it a completely seamless experience at airports. So things like getting into a lounge. I don't know if you've been to DFW, but we have an Amazon store there.
Yes.
And
There's no cashiers.
Yeah, imagine that your face would provide you access. It would be linked to your, basically a credit card or currency that you have on file. So you walk in, you grab a Coke, a bag of chips, and walk out. And all that happens kind of behind the scenes. Also, the other thing I'm really excited about is, you may not know, at DFW we have pretty ambitious sustainability goals. We're going to be net zero by 2030 is our goal.
Wow.
And so to do that requires a lot of optimization of how we run our operations. So we're working on some initiatives now, and you may not know this, but one of the biggest opportunities is the amount of jet fuel that's burned when aircraft are taxiing in from landing to the passenger boarding bridge. And you would be astounded to know that reducing that time by a minute results in a significant amount of jet fuel consumption, but also dollar savings to the airlines. So we're working with the airlines on that, and it's really has to do with making sure when the aircraft gets to the passenger boarding bridge, the gate, that everything is there, that they can basically turn off the jet, they plug into our ground power units, and so they're not running the AC off of jet power, and that's really where the savings are. But when you think about 1,000 flight operations every day, 365 days a year, that really starts to build up. And a minute makes a huge difference.
Oh, interesting. Any other cool things that are coming our way?
Well, and the other thing is the technology to screen you through security is advancing rapidly. So in the not too distant future, this idea of having to take off your shoes, take your laptop out, the screening technology, not only the imaging, but then layering artificial intelligence, machine learning on that is really going to make that a much more enhanced experience for passengers. And it's all about reducing the friction. And because ultimately, if you're not stressed, if you're able to navigate our facilities effectively, then you're enjoying our great concessions, our restaurants, our lounges, and that everybody benefits that way.
Increasing revenue.
Exactly.
Right. You also mentioned a new partnership potentially with the UK.
Yes. So it's called One Stop Security, and anyone who's flown internationally and then had to transfer through DFW knows that upon arrival at DFW, you basically have to clear customs, collect your bags, go back through security, check in for a domestic flight if you're going to Albuquerque, let's say, or my favorite airport, Traverse City. And so it's just a tedious process. Yes. This partnership with the UK, the bags that are screened over in London at Heathrow, they'll share that information back to us. And instead of your bag having to be collected after customs, it will just be automatically put on the domestic flight that you'll be departing on. So you still have to clear customs, but you don't have to go through security again. So it'll be a huge improvement for our passengers, and we'll be that project is underway right now. We're still working through some policy issues, but the technology's there, and we hope to roll that out later this year.
So exciting.
Yes, yeah, it
and
really
more
is.
Efficiency for the traveler.
Yes, and that's I mean, to be able to point to my kids and show them some tangible things. Yeah, they know I do something with computers, but that makes it fun for me.
You're not help desk.
Yeah.
Do you see the state of air travel going back up, or are we already where we are before the pandemic?
Yeah, there are some airports that are more tied to international traffic that are still not quite where they were at. But DFW has been where we had another record-breaking year. And I should mention, we're celebrating our 50th anniversary this year.
Wow.
Actually, 13th of this month. So we're very excited about that, and there'll be a lot of fanfare associated with that. But our CEO has been in the news a lot. You probably heard we're building a new terminal, Terminal F, and then our oldest terminal, Terminal C, is going to be completely modernized. But we're at 80 million passengers a year today. and project to be at 100 million by 2030. It's interesting. Business travel has not returned to quite the extent, but it's been backfilled by leisure travel and then some. And there's a new term, bleisure, which I take advantage of myself, which is, I'm taking a business trip and bring some of the family with me. So there's a lot of that going on. And so, we were kind of blindsided by the pandemic. So, I wouldn't promise, but everything points to the, increased growth and demand for aviation. And it's exciting to be a part of. And, from a technology perspective, we can't just keep building terminals indefinitely. So we've really got to optimize the space, and it really, technology will play a key part in that. So I'm excited to be a part of the future at DFW.
Mike, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind from your career?
Well, I would like to answer that in two ways if I could. First of all, when I think about my career, it's really all about serving my family. And so I have 3 daughters, and this job can be demanding at times. Sorry. And so, I've missed some stuff, but they, my legacy to them is when it was really important, I've been there for them. So that's one legacy. And I would want my customers to say the same thing, that, if there was a problem with the system or a project or an implementation, Mike owned that and took responsibility for it and made it right. And ultimately, he understood that IT was there to help us. So whether it's my daughters or my customers, I would want my legacy to be that I was there to try to help you.
Yeah. Well, as a general public and consumer of the DFW Airport, I certainly seen a lot of great new tech. Even you mentioned Terminal C, some of those digital signs and things like that. I'm like, oh. I remember walking in almost with a sense of wonder, because I was like, oh, wow, like real-time updates and all that.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because as I go to other airports, to me, the industry term for those are electronic visual information displays. And to me, that's kind of the identity of an airport. So that's one of the first things I look at is the quality of it. And we've got a great partner there who does really some, the technology is good, but also the graphics, and it all comes together. And we've got the animated Skylink train and, do holiday themed things. So that it's really fun. And to me, that's like, kind of the experience and a bit of the identity of the airport. So I that's one of the things I get excited about as well.
Awesome. So last question, this is something new that I'm introducing.
Okay.
So I have these conversation cards where I don't even know all the questions, and they can range from deep questions to wide-reaching questions.
Okay.
And so this will be a surprise to both of us.
Oh boy.
Okay. Are you ready or willing?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So you pick one of these cards and then answer the question. Okay. Or read out the question, and we'll go from there.
Oh boy. Okay. What would you like to pay attention to that you don't currently pay attention to, and why? Whew, man, that's a good one. Could I answer it as maybe not enough attention to? And I would say it's my inbox. I as much as I try, I just have never been able to master my inbox. And I'm always playing catch up with email. So if there was one like, New Year's resolution thing I could change today would be to get a hold. If they were weeds, I'd be the guy with a lot of weeds in the front
That's where
yard.
executive assistants come in, Mike. Nobody can keep up with their
Yeah,
inboxes.
I know.
Well, thank you for that. And thank you for your time today.
Yeah,
and
no,
sharing all those insights.
my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it.
And thank you to all of you out there in the audience. Thank you for tuning in to the Tech Legacies podcast. We are on all the different podcast channels, so be sure to leave us a review and let us know how we're doing or other questions that you would like me to ask our guests. And then if you're catching this on YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell so that we can continue to keep you updated. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. At Tech Legacies, we're all about helping technology professionals grow and succeed in their careers by sharing the advice of top technology executives. If you're looking to take your career to the next level and become a technology executive yourself, we have an exciting program to tell you about. It's called the Tech CXO Excellence Program by Tech CXO Launchpad, and they are our partners. They're offering an immersive, multimodal program developed and taught by current and former CIOs and CTOs who are passionate about building the next generation of C-suite technology executives. And you'll experience a full immersion into the C-suite world and also get to collaborate, network, and experience capstone-style projects with other professionals. And this is all while benefiting from face-to-face interactions in person with industry guest speakers. It is exclusively for a new level of C-suite executives and C-level direct reports and second directs who are earmarked for succession planning and career growth. To join their waitlist, register your interest at www.techcxolaunchpad.com. That's techcxolaunchpad.com. This program has everything you need to take your career to the next level.